The other day, as I headed down to the pawpaw patch, I noticed unusual activity with my strongest hive. They seemed to be swarming. They were splitting into two groups on the hive. Knowing the delicate balance within the colony, I opted to observe without intervention since they landed on the hive body itself. Concerned about potentially disrupting the queen or other dynamics, I decided to simply monitor them at that moment, and I'm glad I did. They ended up going back into the hive later that night. Honeybee swarming serves as a primary reproductive strategy. When a colony outgrows its hive or when conditions are just right, the colony instinctively splits into multiple groups. One group, led by the old queen, will leave the hive in what is known as a swarm. Swarming typically occurs in the spring or early summer when nectar and pollen sources are abundant. And in my apiary, I try to catch swarms and relocate them into an empty hive. Most of the time I'm successful, but I have lost a few. I've even had a few feral swarms find one of my empty hives and move right in, which is how this colony actually came to be. Swarming behavior is also influenced by environmental factors such as temperature, humidity, mites, and food availability. Once a swarm leaves the hive, it initially clusters nearby, usually in a tree, while scout bees search for a suitable location to establish a new colony. Once a suitable site is found, the swarm relocates and the process of establishing a new hive begins. I always try to catch the queen because her pheromone entices the swarm to stay. And a few days later, as anticipated, the swarm took flight. However, their lofty perch presented a challenge. Initially, I attempted to coax them into the hive box using frames of drawn comb, but to no avail, time after time. This was a pretty big swarm, and I didn't want to lose them, so I stepped back to assess the situation.
All right, that didn't work. They all flew back up to the primary swarm. So I repositioned everything and spread the sheet all underneath the hive. And I'm just going to try to shake it in. It's just too high in such an awkward location for me to do much else. So. Alright, we've got her. Yes, there she is. Okay. Alright. Oh, I didn't think I was going to get her. That's a big relief because that was just a lucky strike. We put her here in the front of the entrance, and eventually they will all find her. They are all family. This disperses their pheromone into the air, and that should attract the rest of the bees. Alright, so it worked. I need to release the queen and put the frame back in, and then after dark, I'll close the entrance and move them in place.
Ultimately, I resorted to shaking them in, a risky move to be sure. Most of the bees landed on the hive box, thank goodness, but a large portion landed on me and the sheet I had spread underneath. Fortunately, I found the queen amidst the buzz lying on the sheet, and I secured her with a clip. Spotting the queen early on was a stroke of luck, because it's her pheromones that play an important role in guiding the swarm into the hive box. When I was confident they were moving in, I released her, and the remaining bees moved in over the next few hours. Then at dusk, I moved them into the empty slot in the apiary. What an exhilarating day it was on the homestead. The following day, they wasted no time. The diligent workers were bustling about gathering nectar and pollen.